Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Emily Schrader, and coming up in today's newscast, Islamic Republic President Raisi and Foreign Minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian were killed in a helicopter crash overnight. Iranians across Iran and online respond to the death of the regime's president in celebration. U.S. Congresswoman Elise Stefanik arrives in Israel and addresses the Knesset on campus antisemitism. Breaking news today from the International Criminal Court, which has issued arrest warrants for Prime Minister Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. The charges include causing starvation, denying humanitarian aid, and deliberately targeting civilians, among others. The chief prosecutor, Karim Khan, has also applied for warrants in relation to 3 Hamas leaders, Yahya Sinwar, Ismail Haniya, and Mohammed Deif. We open our broadcast with another major development in Iran, where the president of the Islamic Republic, Ibrahim Raisi, along with the foreign minister of the Islamic Republic, Hossein Amir-Abdollahian, have both been killed in a helicopter accident in northwest Iran. The accident occurred due to inclement weather, according to initial reports, and all passengers in the helicopter were killed. Also on board was the regime's representative to eastern Azerbaijan, Saeed Mohammed Al-Ali Hashem, and provincial governor Malik Ramadi. In response to the accident, many nations have expressed condolences to the Islamic Republic, including Lebanon, Venezuela, South Africa, and Russia, with Russian President Putin stating, "We are deeply saddened." Terrorist groups like Hezbollah and Hamas both issued their condolences as well. In the initial aftermath of the news, Iranians in Tehran, Rasht, Mashhad, and other Iranian cities were seen celebrating with fireworks. IRGC forces were quickly deployed to deter celebrations in the streets. Online, however, the celebrations continued, demonstrating pure contempt for the Islamic Republic and a sudden passion for helicopters. There was no immediate evidence that the crash was an assassination, but there are no shortage of theories running around as this death of Raisi may change things internally inside the Islamic Republic. Raisi is known as a regime hardliner. He's most famous for his role as head of the judiciary, for which he earned the title the Butcher of Tehran, as he oversaw the executions of thousands of Iranian dissidents and as a member of the Death Committee. Under his watch and vision, women were tortured and assaulted for not wearing hijab. Political dissidents were hanged. Protesters were slaughtered. For these reasons, thousands of Iranians are celebrating his demise. He should not be remembered as a statesman, but for the murderer that he was. Foreign Minister Amir-Abdollahian, another regime official with blood on his hands, famously stated in 2021 that Israel would not exist in the future of the Middle East. Instead, today it is him who does not exist in the future of the Middle East. The path that Raisi and the foreign minister chose is a path of terrorism, corruption, and death. And may anyone who follows in their footsteps, be it Hamas, Hezbollah, or the Houthis, meet the very same fate.
Israel Bonds, the heartbeat of solidarity, the powerhouse of support. When the Hamas-Israel war hit, Israel Bonds stood tall, proving we're more than just an investment, we're a lifeline. Investing in Israel Bonds isn't just a financial move, it's a declaration for resilience, strength, and a better future for Israel. Join us and let solidarity echo through generations.
Well, Israelis are certainly not celebrating the death of Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi and Foreign Minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian, but they are wondering if it will help contribute to a more peaceful future in the region. ILTV's Mayan Hoffman asks the experts.
Will the deaths of the Iranian president and foreign minister impact Iranian foreign policy in the region? According to several experts, their deaths are unlikely to impact Iran's policies regarding Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, or even its nuclear program. This is because the Iranian government implements the policies of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei rather than creating them. Moreover, whoever replaces Raisi is likely to have a similar character. The only way Israel might see a change is if there is some kind of uprising within Iran, Iranian journalist Ashkan Safei told ILTV.
Probably for the next few weeks, the Iranian regime, the Islamic Republic, has much to be concerned of inside Iran. And that could mean that they cannot be like as involved at it. I mean, that they have been in the last 7-8 months in their, in the Middle East, what's happening in the Middle East between us and Hezbollah and Hamas and the other, other groups in the region, Houthis and everyone else.
However, a significant impact could be seen in the battle for Khamenei's succession. At 85, Khamenei's position could soon be contested, and Raisi, who is being groomed for leadership, was one of the top two contenders.
Timing is crucial. Khamenei is now 85. And I don't hold it against him, but he is determined in the last few years to leave a heritage, to institutionalize and make this Islamic revolution something perpetual, that will last for long after him. And he finally found Raisi, who is absolutely loyal.
If Khamenei dies or is forced to step down before a suitable replacement is found, could this mean a better future for Israel? For now, we'll just have to hope.
Joining us now to discuss this shocking news development is Yonah Bob, journalist and author of the new book, Target Tehran. Yonah, thank you so much for joining us today. Just to start, I'm wondering what you would say the impact of these deaths will have on primarily the terrorist organizations that we're dealing with right now here in Israel.
Look, it's not a direct impact because the real person who makes the decisions in Iran is the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Okay, but Ibrahim Raisi, the president who just died, was said to be probably the successor of Khamenei. Khamenei's 85 years old. He's been sick for a long time. So Raisi could have been the new supreme leader in 6 months or a year, something like that. So even if it might not have had an immediate impact on, let's say, what Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, some of the militias in Syria, all of these proxies of Iran, as you referred to, it might not have had an immediate impact on them. It might have had a very, very large impact on them in the near future.
Now, given that your most recent book was about Israel's effective, targeted assassinations, do you think that there's a possibility that Israel was involved? And if so, what do you think are 1 or 2 ideas for how Israel could have even pulled something like this off?
So many people have been asking me about this since it happened. I do not think that Israel did it. How could Israel or somebody else have pulled it off? Actually, pretty easily. Iran's Air Force is hobbled. It has been a bad Air Force even before the most recent sanctions of the last 5 or 10 years. There have been sanctions on Iran's Air Force and other aspects of Iran even before the nuclear deal, broke down in 2018. So Iran's Air Force, their helicopters, have had all kinds of trouble. We talk about in the book Target Tehran that a number of facilities that were blown up in Iran were, I have to say, because of the censor, according to foreign sources, blown up by the Mossad. But a number of facilities actually just blew up on their own because Iran just has horrible maintenance, and the sanctions have made the maintenance even worse. So it would not be hard to sabotage those things. The conspiracy theories that might be closer to being true would be internal within Iran. Other people who would want to be the next successor to Khamenei, would like to be president. Maybe those people might have been behind something.
Yonah,
it wasn't in fact bad weather.
I was actually going to ask you about this theory that, on the ground in Iran, one of the things that's being discussed is perhaps this was orchestrated internally. One of the possibilities could be to increase voter turnout. One of them could be to get Raisi out of the way so that the son of the current Ayatollah could potentially succeed later on as the supreme leader. What are your thoughts on these accusations or conspiracies?
Look, those I think could be true. Again, look, I think we need to sort of start with there was really bad weather. Their Air Force and helicopters are not very good. And so it really could have been an accident. But those conspiracy theories really could be true. There have been all kinds of assassinations done in the past. Khamenei himself assassinated some people who could have been, successors or challenges to him at different points in time. So it is something that has happened in Iran in the past. Right? There's Khamenei's son is a challenger. There's at least two people who are part of this sort of very small cleric body that picks the next successor, who I was told, would be interested in this. And at least one intelligence source took some of those conspiracy theories very seriously, even if nobody can really pinpoint one.
Well, what do you think is Israel's move, and how can we ensure that Israel doesn't get dragged into any kind of conflict over being incorrectly blamed? We've already seen a lot of anti-Israel activists saying, "Oh, Israel did this, Israel did this." What should Israel be doing right now?
Look, I think the first thing was deny it. A lot of times Israel doesn't confirm or deny. Israel did, in fact, deny it. I would have denied it yesterday. Israel waited until today to deny it. I think there was a certain amount of shock in Israeli circles, and they were maybe afraid originally. Sometimes we get very analytical in Israel that if they denied it, that people might jump on that, so they didn't want to say anything. But I think it was good that Israel did deny it. That's number one. And then I think as long as Iran isn't pointing the finger at Israel, and even though there are, in social media pointing the finger so far, I don't see the Iranians doing that. I think they understand that Israel's business is to slow down or stop the nuclear weapons program. That's why you see all kinds of nuclear scientists, dying or disappearing, as we say in the book sometimes. But the president of Iran himself, that would be a target that, if Israel actually went after him, could lead to a general war. And also, again, he's not actually the decision maker about the nuclear program. That's Ayatollah Khamenei.
Of course. Well, Yonah, we are out of time, but I want to thank you so much for your insights today. Very informative. Thanks.
Thank you.
Did Israel play a role in orchestrating the unexpected death of Islamic Republic President Ibrahim Raisi? With all the rumors on social networks, we asked ILTV editor-in-chief Mayan Hoffman to look into the matter.
Rumors circulated throughout social media Sunday night into Monday alleging Israeli involvement in the death of Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi, who was killed last night in a helicopter crash. Specifically, rumors spread across networks and some fringe media outlets that the helicopter pilot was a Mossad agent named Eli Copter. However, there is no evidence linking Israel to the crash, and Israeli officials have not made any formal comments on the incident. An anonymous official told Reuters on Monday, quote, Israel was not involved in the death of Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi in a helicopter crash that also killed several members of his entourage. Professor Meir Litvak, a senior research associate at the Alliance Center for Iranian Studies, told ILTV that Israel would, quote, be crazy to go against Iran, end quote. At this time, he noted that Israel's controlled reaction to the more than 300 aerial attacks from the Islamic regime in April indicated a lack of interest by Israel in escalating the conflict. Litvak's colleague, Professor David Menashri, had this to say to ILTV.
Somehow, every disaster, everything that happened, people turn to Israel in whether either they are involved or not. So far, the Iranians, as much as I know, do not blame Israel, and there is no reason for Israel to say that we are not involved. Why should they be involved? And I think that wise people, as we say in our tradition, in such moments should be silent and not jump at the head, not happiness and not mourning, but go rationally to speak about what happened. There is enough on the table. God forbid that A, B, or C have been involved in this.
Speculations abound and will undoubtedly continue. However, for now, at least according to those who will comment, it appears that Israel was not involved in Raisi's death.
Well, the question of who will be the next president of the Islamic Republic is already being widely spoken about. Let's take a look at some of the possibilities who might be next in line and why it matters. With the sudden passing of Islamic regime President Ibrahim Raisi, along with the foreign minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian, one of the most obvious questions is who will replace him. The regime already announced that there would be a temporary replacement filled by Vice President Mohammad Mokhber, and that elections for Raisi's permanent replacement would be called within 50 days. Mokhber is part of a three-person council along with the Speaker of Parliament and the head of the judiciary that will organize new presidential elections. Mokhber is also a regime insider who personally was involved with the sale of surface-to-air missiles to Russia to be used against Ukraine. He has also faced European sanctions for his involvement with the Iranian nuclear program. More strange, however, is that Raisi was considered to be the favorite candidate to ultimately replace the Ayatollah Khamenei when the time comes. The only other candidate was Ayatollah Khamenei's son, Mujtaba. With Raisi out of the way, many Iranians are chattering about the possibility of the helicopter crash being planned by the Ayatollah. While conspiracy theories continue to emerge on social media, no statement has been made about the accident by any officials which detail foul play. Well, joining us now to discuss these major events in Iran is Iranian dissident and investigative journalist Patkin Azameh, who has been active in fighting against the Islamic Republic for many years already. Patkin, thank you so much for joining us. Just to start, what do you think, is important that the public in America knows about Raisi and who he really was?
Good day to you, Emily. He was known as the Butcher of Tehran. In 1988, when the Iranian political prisoners, mostly left-wing prisoners, were massacred, he was named by a dissident Ayatollah Montazeri as one of the 5 main judges that were presiding through these kangaroo courts. Most of these prisoners, they'd finished their sentences. They should have been released. But the regime was scared of releasing them because the war had ended, and obviously there were problems, shortages, and that after the war. And they were afraid that these activists would then lead an uprising against the regime. So they decided to massacre them, even though their prison sentences had ended. And there were no protests anywhere in the world about it. No one even knew about it. I don't even think Amnesty issued a statement about it. And he was one of those judges. And in the short time that he's been the president, he's been a laughingstock of most of the Iranians. He's come across as very uneducated. He's only really got seminary education. He had difficulties reading numbers. He was coming up with words that were not in the vocabulary. It was an ideal candidate for a lot of the comedy posts on Iranian social media, etc.
And continues to be even today. Now, does his death and what happened yesterday, does it give you any hope as an Iranian, and why or why not?
No, not much, because the president in Iran is not really an important position. Everything is decided by the supreme leader. It's the supreme leader that decides the major policies. Until he's alive, he can hold the different factions together. But when he dies, then I expect a more intense power struggle. I mean, we have internal power struggle within the regime all the time. Every now and again, we go through a period of purges and internal power struggles. But the real intense one will come about after the supreme leader, not after the president. The president is not really important. Presidents come and go, and the major policies don't change.
We are running out of time, but I just wanted to hear from you. What do you anticipate will happen on the ground in Iran now? I know there will be an interim president and an election within 50 days. What do you expect will happen, if anything new?
So the vice president will take over as the interim president for 50 days, and then he's tasked with holding so-called elections, if you could call them elections, in the Islamic Republic to decide the next president. On the more immediate front, what I see is that the majority of Iranians seem to be celebrating. I mean, there must be some Iranians who will be sad, but if we judge anything by the level of participation in the last second round of the parliamentary elections, only 3 to 5%, 3% in larger cities, 5% in rural areas participated in elections. And that's a good poll of like how much support the regime has amongst the population. Maybe 3% of the population will be, grieving or something. But I think the vast majority of Iranian populations, if they're not celebrating, I don't think they'll be upset.
All right, Patkin, thank you so much for your time and for your critical insights on these breaking events.
Thanks, Emily.
Day 227 of the war in Gaza, and the IDF is operating in eastern Rafah, conducting targeted raids while killing at least 80 terrorists in the area. This as the UN is saying that 800,000 Gazan civilians have evacuated from Rafah. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz reports.
Dozens of Hamas targets were hit across Gaza over the past day, including the killing of 2 tactical-level commanders who were preparing to attack Israeli forces in the Rafah area. According to the IDF, at least 80 Hamas fighters were killed in the past 24 hours. A senior Hamas operative involved in the smuggling of arms was killed in an airstrike. Azmi Abu Daka was involved in smuggling weapons and funds for Hamas into Gaza. The IDF announced the death of an officer who died of wounds suffered while fighting in northern Gaza on May 15th, raising the toll in the ground offensive to 283. Defense Minister Gallant met the Military Intelligence Directorate's 8200 unit and said that Israel is beginning to see the effects of the operation in Rafah on Hamas. He said that intelligence assists the ground forces and locates tunnels and Hamas headquarters, bringing achievements that advance the war's goals. According to the United Nations, some 800,000 people have evacuated Rafah since May 6th, when the IDF gave the order. Israel says that Hamas still has 4 brigades in Rafah and also believes that many of the remaining hostages taken during the Hamas-led October 7th terror onslaught are being held in tunnels under the city. Dozens of tunnels used to smuggle weapons and other supplies from Egypt to Gaza's terror groups have been discovered in Rafah.
Key talks on the Gaza war were held between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and visiting U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. Discussions reportedly focused on IDF operations in Rafah and the opportunity currently available for Israel to normalize relations with Saudi Arabia, assuming Jerusalem agrees to a pathway to a future Palestinian state. ILTV's William Sharon has the report.
The meeting in Jerusalem between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan came at a key juncture in the conduct of the war in Gaza, as well as a potential for normalization of the ties with Saudi Arabia. The U.S. readout said Sullivan was briefed on the IDF's latest operation in Gaza, and the two sides discussed methods to ensure the defeat of Hamas, while minimizing harm to civilians. Sullivan reiterated the U.S. position against a major military offensive, due to fears that it will cause further harm to the civilians sheltering there, and risk damage to ties with fellow ally Egypt, which shares a border with Rafah. Referring to post-war Gaza, the U.S. National Security Advisor said Israel must connect its military operations to a political strategy that can ensure the lasting defeat of Hamas, the release of all hostages, and a better future for Gaza. Sullivan also laid out to Prime Minister Netanyahu the opportunity currently available for Israel to normalize ties with Saudi Arabia if Jerusalem agrees to a pathway to a future Palestinian state. The effort met resistance from Netanyahu, who reportedly said that he will not accept a Palestinian state, even if it meant no Saudi normalization deal.
Visiting U.S. Congresswoman Elise Stefanik was in the Knesset, and the Republican lawmaker used the opportunity to slam President Biden's decision to pause a shipment of weapons to Israel. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz reports.
Slamming U.S. President Joe Biden's decision to pause a shipment of thousands of bombs to Israel, Representative Stefanik warned that unless Israel is supplied with the weapons necessary to achieve total victory, America could face its own October 7th. She also was sharply critical of U.S. policy toward the Iran nuclear deal.
I have been clear at home, and I will be clear here. There is no excuse for an American president to block aid to Israel, aid that was duly passed by the Congress. There is no excuse to ease sanctions on Iran, paying a $6 billion ransom to the world's leading state sponsor of terror, or to dither and hide while our friends fight for their lives. No excuse, full stop.
Stefanik was reacting to the Biden administration's move this month to put a weapons shipment of 3,500 large bombs on hold over concerns about their use in populated areas in Gaza. Biden also threatened to withhold further arms if Israel moves into population centers in Rafah.
Let's take a look at the weather forecast. Cloudy skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with lows of around 19 degrees Celsius or 67 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll have clear, sunny skies with highs of about 28 degrees Celsius or 82 degrees Fahrenheit. That's all for today's news. For more updates from Israel on all your devices, check out our ILTV channels, subscribe to our ILTV newsletter, and don't forget to check out our website, iltv.tv, with all the latest news from the heart of the State of Israel. I'm Emily Schrader. Be well, and thank you for watching.